welcome to this month in arts marketing. I'm here with Angela Meleca today, and we are doing a little bit of a different format. Typically, you see Megan and Mel and myself talking about what's happening in the arts world. And today, I wanted to bring in Angela because I want to focus a little bit more on what is happening to the funding in the arts world and give you some ideas of solutions and tools that you can use to help solidify your funding and talk about advocacy a bit. And Angela is the smartest person I know when it comes to all things art related and funding. And she has some really great just information that I wanted to make sure that you all knew about. So Angela, will you take a second and just kind of tell a little bit about yourself so everybody kind of has an idea of what you're doing?
Hi, Lynette. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me. I always love starting out by saying that I don't have a background in the arts. I always think that that's kind of funny to bring that into conversation. I actually come from a political science journalism background, and so I spent many years covering politics and then went into politics and communications. And then I opened an art gallery, which was a really oddball thing for me to do. But what I realized in doing that, because of my personal passion in the arts, that really gave me real world experience on not only gallery small business work, but I partnered a lot with arts institutions and I worked a ton with individual artists. That began this whole journey of the last, 15 years or so of solely focusing on arts advocacy, arts communication, and just more of how do we connect arts wider to communities and seeing how the arts struggle with breaking through and getting their value across to stakeholders, policymakers, corporate leaders. Probably during the pandemic, it was most evident the importance to shift how we communicate and language in the arts by really advocating and raising $160 million in 3.5 years for the arts and nonprofit arts organizations, doing that by changing language and how we talk about not the arts, but the creative workforce. And so seeing that shift and getting that buy-in from public officials, I might add a very conservative Republican caucus that was able to support the arts. I felt that we really need new tools and a new language for talking about what we offer to communities and how we build healthy, strong individuals and prosperous communities throughout the country.
I think the reason that I wanted to talk to you specifically is because I know we talked a few weeks ago that I went to AfterCon, and leaving AfterCon, I had this thought, moment, feelings, all of the things that it wasn't enough. And we weren't looking at arts organizations and cultural organizations through the right lens anymore because the world has shifted. And unfortunately, we are not shifting with it. And I know that is kind of right in your wheelhouse. And we have some crossover between what we do. Everybody that follows us at Confluence knows that we're data nerds and we love the data and how it really helps tell the story. And I think that's kind of where you're the yin to my yang, if you will. We look at it from a marketing perspective, and I think you look at it from more of like an external perspective and how the world interacts with arts and cultural organizations. And so I really just wanted to talk to you about advocating for the arts right now, what you think the new way is, if there is a new way. And I want to go beyond just call your representatives. To me, that is not a strong enough message anymore. And so I just really wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Oh my gosh, I have seven different directions that I could go on that right now. The one thing that a lot of people miss the mark, if we're speaking strictly advocacy and talking to lawmakers, regardless if it's city, local, national, is everybody goes to them with a problem, with a concern, with a challenge. We need help. Not a lot of people go with, and I have a solution
Mm-hmm.
or a couple of ideas of solutions. Bring them the challenge, but think through how can you help fix this for us?
We talk all the time. One of the key phrases that we say is it's not about you, it's about them. It's not about us. It's about who is reading everything that we're writing, who is consuming all of the marketing that we're putting out. And they don't know all the internal workings. And honestly, they don't care. And I feel like we're in the same place. I don't care about how the Americans for the Arts and all of that, they do it. I really don't. Just do it. Like, get it done and tell me what I need to do in order to also make sure that we're having, broad conversations. Yeah, we need to be talking to our legislators like that too. Instead of, hey, we're doing this and we had 100,000 people at our shows last year. That's not the right thing because they don't care about how many people we had at our shows. They have all
Oh,
these arts organizations giving them all of this
right,
random.
right. Newsflash, public officials care about getting reelected, getting reappointed, getting repositioned, or going on to the next public office that they want to hold. So, how can you help them be a hero? Who are you speaking to? What do they care about? What's important to them? What's their bottom line? And how can you help that bottom line, what they care about, that connects back to you? So, if you are an arts organization and you are talking to your lawmaker who your audience come is from their constituency, that's an easy thing because if your mission is to create a more empathetic community or to help a more connected community, reduce loneliness, whatever, then you can take that and say, you're helping solve this community challenge. So, if anything, our product is the best product possible to relate and correlate to any person or issue because we are that, I don't know if amenable is the right word. We're that adaptable. We're that, we are humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the cohort and what I think it's fascinating what you're measuring now. And so would love
Yeah.
to just get some more insights into what it is and how it's going and all the things.
Yeah. And so this is interesting because it really came out for me when I look back, it was a selfish thing that I wanted to do for my own challenges in my advocacy work because I've spent years talking about economic impact in the arts. That doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work anymore. We've been talking about it for 3 or 4 decades. It may have worked in the 80s,
Mhm.
in the 90s. It doesn't work now. If it did, we wouldn't have an NEA that has no funding. We wouldn't have all of the dialogue about all of the bad things that the arts are bringing to, mix everybody up rather than the good prosperity. So we've got to get out of economic impact. I understand why we do that, why we have done that, because that's all we have known how to measure. My desire was there's got to be a way that we can prove the wow factor. We can measure the wow. We can measure the transformation that happens, the light bulb, the goosebumps, all of those things that we know that the arts provide. But I just didn't know how. And in my constant digging and talking about this, which I talk nonstop about it, somebody introduced me to an organizational psychologist that who knew that there's a whole field out there that their job is to create logic models for measuring empathy and critical thinking and connecting to communities, 21st century learning skills. So critical thinking, collaboration, communication, all of these things that matter. So we recruited 20 organizations of all disciplines and sizes, and we built a menu, if you will, of 20 different things you could measure. Come in, look at the 20, pick 2 or 3. What do you want to measure? And then we provide you with tools how to do it. What questions do you need to ask? When do you survey? How do you do that? Then we collect the data. Then the data is analyzed in real time. And these organizations own their own data to be able to start to communicate now how they are impacting communities, what the public value of their programs are. Because again, I'm thinking about what is the language that a non-creative needs to understand? What is the language that any investor wants to know? I'm going to give you this, but what's going to be the return? So venture capitalists invest, but they want to know what my return on investment is going to be.
Mhm.
We now can talk about what your return on investment in the arts is because we're measuring social emotional well-being, we're measuring job preparedness skills, we're measuring all these things that funders, philanthropists, foundations, and public officials care about. We can find new opportunities for support. Where can we partner cross sector? So, are we going to hospital systems? We know that there have been this talk and increasing about, art pharmacy and prescribing the arts for a better outcome. Well, Great. And we have a tool to measure that. Well, let's start working more hand in hand with hospital systems or educational systems, or, let's go to the tech world and look at those areas where we can help build that more critical or creative thinking in the workplace. So, visual literacy is a really big thing that I know a manufacturer is working with a museum, and they give visual literacy workshops to organizations, companies that they're manufacturing, or they've got plant floors where hazards happen, where somebody doesn't notice a hazard as they're walking through the factory and they can get hurt. They're now teaching employees how to look out for things, how to see things differently. And they're seeing hazards in the workplace reduce because we're teaching what we had visual literacy for docents to help lead tours through a museum to help you look at a piece of art. We're using those same techniques and we're now applying that to manufacturing to help employees look out for things in the workplace to prevent hazards from happening, which is saving thousands, if not millions of dollars.
It's such an interesting way to look at art. Is I think we've always looked at it internally, and it's so about what we want to do, and we talk about working in the community and being in the community, but it's still siloed. It's still separate from the community. Even if you're going directly into the community, I still think we're not putting community first, we're putting art first, and we need to kind of change that perspective.
And what I like to say is we need to lead with impact and finish with art. Impact has to come first. Art will always be made. Art will always be there, but art is the secondary of it. So you're right. If all we're focusing on is what's the next season program, and we've got to do the Nutcracker, and we've got to do Swan Lake, and we haven't done Dracula in a while, and we haven't, and we go through that churn, that's great, but it's one dimensional. That's transactional.
Mhm.
If we want to transform audiences, students through ballet, then we've got to think about, okay, the art, that program's the tool with which we can transform. Then we can relate it more to community. It's about them, and
Mhm.
we're using our tool to help them,
I
to
love
transform them.
I love that too, because as someone an arts admin that helps put different things like this together, that shows what I'm doing is important too. And like, how fulfilling is that for me to, as an artist, to realize that what I am doing is visibly changing the world more than just saying, like, oh, art changes the world. I am visibly seeing, like, we had this many people that are now less lonely because of what we did. They are now creating
Yeah,
friendships because of what we did.
right.
And, honestly, that's always been the truly fulfilling part of working in the arts for me is seeing relationships and seeing people grow. It's always been like an individual story here, an individual story there, just a moment instead of looking at it in mass. Data always feels overwhelming to people. Like we hear it all the time. They either don't know what to measure or they are measuring it and they don't know how to tell the story or read it or any of that. So, what are your thoughts on how hard it would be to get this data? Would it shift their entire way of like doing business? Do they have to change their artistic product? Like, what are your thoughts on someone that might be interested in this but is feeling overwhelmed from I already have a very heavy workload. I can't
Yeah.
throw everything away and start over.
So again, the goal was to build a model that would be as easy to adapt as possible, because I come from analyzing for the last 12 years or more challenges that arts organizations have had. So I knew going into that there were going to be, the cost was going to be a barrier to entry. The capacity to gather the information was going to be a barrier to entry, and all those things. So we've spent the last 12 months really trying to build a system that can work. The first thing is you have to have an open mind to know that data is the future of arts funding. I don't care if it's public funding, foundational, or local sponsorship. You have to have data. You can't, it's no more can we say that artistic excellence, or we've always done it this way, or we just know that the arts uplift, which my joke on that. I say a bra uplifts.
Oh.
The arts are foundational. So let's not use the uplifting comment anymore for justification as to why we must support the arts. I wish everyone could just stop for a minute and think about when you talk about data overload, I get it, but what data are you focusing on?
Mhm.
And maybe it's time to put a pause on the numbers, on the outputs, and put a pause on, you know, these checking the box and reevaluate what is your why?
Mhm.
Why are you doing what you're doing?
Mhm.
Even if it's, I want my music to make a more harmonious community. Okay, why? And because a harmonious community is a happier community. Why? Because they come together and they have an open mind. Why? And we go down and drill that down. And if we can just stop and think about it, really, the hope is, and I've seen it, is it's a calming transition to this way because it's concrete evidence of the outcomes of the public value of what we're doing to transform our community.
It makes me think. So I tell all the time, like our arts organization, sometimes you just have to stop and you have to pull up. And you have to have that drone eye view of what's happening. And we say it as you're at your organization, but it almost needs to go even higher than that. And so you actually need to go up to your entire community. And I'm almost in my head, like I'm piecing almost like a flywheel and like just all these connections, this like beehive that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah. I mean, that again, my dream, my passion is that with this data that we're gathering and that we will continue to do so, that the arts, we don't have to defend or justify why we exist.
Yeah.
It will be shown that we are essential. We are problem solvers. So let's look at how the creative sector can be deployed to solve those problems. And so you're still serving mission. You can still have your programming, but if we really want to be accessible to all, if we really want to be out in community, we have to put community first.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. For people that do feel overwhelmed, I know one of the things that we do when people feel overwhelmed is just give them direction,
Yeah.
help them know what to do and what comes next and what to say and how to say it and all that. Honestly, the thought of going in and talking to any representative is so intimidating to me. And I know they're just people and they just want
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're just open to conversations and they're actually trying or most trying to help their constituents and their communities and stuff, but it does feel very, very intimidating. And so even knowing like, hey, Angela, would you go with me to talk about this thing, this impact, or would you tell me exactly what I need to say or how to convey this? For a lot of our clients, that makes them feel so much better. So is that something too that you do?
Yes, I help organizations or individuals either prepare to talk to a public official or a foundation or a corporation, or I will go with them and do that. That's what I've spent my entire career doing, whether it's been in government or it's been in corporate life. Where do you begin to start formulating strategy for communicating that impact? How do we use those numbers?
I've been picking apart the different pieces that I think are important for a strong and sustainable arts organization to have and to be thinking about. And this is a key one that I don't think that people have brought internal and they've always allowed somebody else to do the advocating for them. They hired a lobbyist or they hired their state's advocacy committee or they let the arts council do it. And I no longer think that is enough. I think we need to bring it internal and external, and it has to be a concentrated effort that we all work together collectively.
Nobody can tell your story better than you can tell your story. And so it is a little, iffy if you're just trusting a consultant to go do the lobbying or advocating for you. You at least need to be there because you're the constituent. The lobbyist may or not even be the constituent, and they're not looked upon as a constituent. Everybody knows that game. Have your lobbyists just get the door open for you. Have them schedule the meeting. The lawmaker needs to hear it, or the stakeholder needs to hear it from the mouth of the constituent.
So we have to go.
You have to go.
We can't just keep depending on everybody else to come and save us. It's time to save ourselves.
This is all about empowerment, taking control back,
Yeah.
being reliant on your own organization, your own talent, and doing it in an innovative and creative way. We've got to get out of the old system. Status quo is done. Moved beyond that. And it'll take some time maybe for others to get to speed. Um, but I'd be happy to connect anybody listening to people that have participated in this initial cohort to talk about their experience because it really hasn't been that long of a time for that mind shift to really take place now that the data is coming in and they're seeing it. This is an in real time and ongoing measurement function. It will be second nature.
So once you set it up, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. The setup is the hardest part.
Well, the setup's actually already there because we built that with the cohort this past year. So really it's why do you do what you do, which then determines what do you want to measure, what outcomes do you want to measure. And we have the menu that says, okay, you want to measure empathy, you want to measure loneliness, you want to measure 21st century learning skills, you want to measure accessibility. Then it becomes a simple mechanics of building your survey, just putting that into something that you will then send out. So it's pretty plug and play.
Awesome.
We all do the work that we do because we know that it makes a difference. Now that we can see that data, that too then translates into your own organization. Because whether you're in marketing or you're in advancement or you're the artistic director or the executive director or on the board or working in the education department, your function is unique to that. But if you all know that through line of why do you do what you do,
Mhm.
there's that link that takes onto that. Then you realize that, oh gosh, I am an important cog in this greater wheel of my institution, and my institution is an important cog in this greater wheel of my region, and this region is an important cog in the greater state, and then it just builds on from there. So it may seem a little painful now to shift a mindset. If we can just get over that a little bit, really, it's just this is designed to make all of these other pieces fall into place so you can focus on the mission and the outcome you have on community and less on defending why we should exist, why we're important, and why somebody should give us the time of day.
Well, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate all of your insights and information. Is there anything that you would want to just leave people with if they're feeling like they don't know what to do next and they're overwhelmed and just kind of scared?
Yeah. One, you're not alone. Everybody is feeling that way. There's a big vacuum, I think, of strategy or vision or looking forward rather than focusing on where we are now or how did we get here. And I think that we can start talking about where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And we have strategies for that. So you're not alone. We're here to listen if you ever want to talk or express or have somebody who understands and just can feel for you and just be that resource to contact and talk to.